Hello, lovelies. Okay, so it is time to create some mental headspace of clarity. So now would be a really great time to grab your tea, to have your crystals handy on you, and also to infuse that Tree of Life essential oil. Those are going to help open up your senses and offer some additional clarity and creating space to free you up from a lot of the mind clutter that's been going on. If you are highly sensitive or empathic, which you probably are if you're watching this, just saying, you probably have been sensing a lot of confusion and distraction and mind noise and energy noise. And so that's kind of what we're going to be addressing in this video. This is where you get kind of the coaching piece to self-assess for a moment and figure out where those mental blocks are in your clarity space. And so there's 4 main things we're going to go over in this video. One of them is getting clarity to know what you want, understanding how to get other people outside your head, and also changing those cycles of habit so that we can find what we really desire. And then also how to get through some of those structure beliefs that could be stopping us from getting what we want. And so I'm really excited that I get to share this part with you. So the first part, understanding what you want. A lot of times that comes through understanding what we don't want. And it's really easy a lot of times to be able to say, oh, well, I may not know what action I need to take or what direction to go, but I know something needs to change because I hate this. And if you've watched our videos for a while, you'll know that that's usually a sign that something needs to change is going to be a negative emotion. So if you've been feeling a lot of negative emotions lately, or if you have the same ones that always keep showing up for some reason, it's probably a sign that something needs to change and we need to get some clarity to figure out what needs to change. So I'm going to be walking you through a little bit of journaling to gain some extra clarity on both what we want and what we don't want in this first portion. So I do recommend grabbing a notebook. You're going to want to write some of these things down. The biggest thing with clarity is remembering to write it down. When you write it down, even if it's so simple, it helps tremendously, because when you write something on paper, you instantly know, wait, actually, that's not true. Or yes, that's true. Sometimes even when we speak it, we can ramble things off and we're like, oh, I don't really mean that. I just said it. How many times have we said that, right? But to understand, oh, when you write it down, it's like it's confirmed, it's set, it's real. And if it's not real, you toss it in the trash and you write something else. So in the very first part, let's start diving in. What is it I want? Ask yourself this. What do I want? Why do I want it? And sometimes that's really hard for us. One of the exercises I love doing is I'll set a timer. And I will set a timer for, it's going to feel like forever, for 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay. And it doesn't seem like that long, but it is when you're listing things out. And in that 4 minutes, I have to write down as many things as I want. If you want to do this even faster, grab a buddy and tell them what you want for 4 minutes and then flip it and have them tell you what they want. And full honesty, full openness, or even just record it and spit it out as fast as you can. See how many things you can say that you want. Now, obviously, this isn't a way that we get into materialism and we get into possessions and things like that. It's honestly able to just say that you want things. Our society has taught us that it's not okay to want unless you're wanting commercialism, which some commercialism items are really cool and we love them. I mean, your kit is a commercialized item, so to speak. And so those are things that are wonderful and fill you up and have a purpose. And that's why we put so much into each of these kits. And so taking 4 minutes of time and saying, okay, I want, and then go. Sometimes I've done this and it's, I want a nap. I want a really good glass of wine right now that's smoky and bitter. I want to go dance in the rain. I want a vacation. I want connection. I want to feel like I make an impact in the world. I want to try rollerblading down my street because I think I'd get a lot of momentum and it would go really fast. Now, all of these things aren't going to be things that you follow through with. And all of these things aren't going to be things that are necessarily safe or desirable as grown-up people, but some of them might be. You might be surprised. But the key is to have this unbridled opening where you just get to spit out anything you want without any judgment, without having to think it through, having to have permission, having to think if it's okay to want, because we forget what we want so often and we get lost in it, or we're like, oh yeah, I used to want that, but then the world taught me I couldn't have that, so I don't let myself want it anymore. How many times have we done that? I'm guilty a lot. In fact, I grew up feeling like I only wanted to want the things that I would actually get. And so if I didn't think I could get it, I wouldn't let myself want it. And if that desire is there, the possibility to get it is there. In fact, it's probably already on its way to you, and your job is just to allow it. But sometimes giving ourselves permission is the hardest piece. And so giving yourself 4 full minutes, setting a timer, going through, writing as many things as you can. And you'll be surprised at what comes out. You're going to get surface level things. You're going to get messy human self things that are the carnal desire portion of us. You're going to get higher self things. You're going to get things like, I want world peace, which is all great. There are no wrong answers. You can be as selfish as you want to be in here. You can be as selfless as you want to be in here. Or odds are it's a mix of all of them. So go ahead, start writing. I will sit here for 4 minutes. Just kidding. Pause it. Go take your 4 minutes. I mean, come on. It's just funny. So allowing yourself to have that time, go through after the 4 minutes is up. Take a look at your list. Is there anything in there that feels like it was given to you by somebody else? Do you really want it? Or do you just think, oh, that's what I'm supposed to want? I don't really want that at all. For example, when I say I want to clean my house, no, I don't. I don't want to clean my house. However, I do want a clean house. So I can figure out how to get what I want. I don't necessarily have to do it. And so look at those and see if there's maybe some things that need a new phrasing or a new purpose. Are they all in one category of your life? Are you listing out relationship things? I want to be more connected with my partner. I want a partner. I want somebody to come in and give me the love that I feel like I give to other people. Maybe that whole list is all having to do with your love life. Maybe the whole list has to do with career or being a parent and being a mom and managing all the things that we're juggling. Where are your wants? Or maybe you have a wide array because you just feel like there's so much lacking in so many areas. This is a really good place to get clarity of what is most important. Where are your priorities? If the majority of your items are in the category of your love life, then that's the area that's bugging you the most. So that's an area that deserves some focus and some energy and some attention. Now, I'm not saying go out and date everybody and throw yourself out there and date below what you value in yourself. But I am saying, okay, well, what needs to happen to create this? Do I need to build some more self-acceptance? Do I need to build some more clarity in exactly what I want in a partner? And then you can make another list of what you want in a partner, if that's the case. And so lists help us to put our brains out on paper. And this is where we can get a lot of that clarity, because even if you don't want something, the essence of it is there. Many, many years ago, I would say it was about, it's been probably 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there. You know, numbers, time, they're relevant to me. So at some point I made a letter. And this can be another way to do the same exercise. If you're like, you know what, the I wants don't resonate with me, this might resonate a little bit more. Everybody's brain's different, so we try and find one that matches to us. Or you can do both. And what I did was I took a letter and I wrote out my life. And I wrote it out as if it already happened and I was talking to my best friend. So I started out by making a list. Lists are nice. I love lists. When it comes to clarity, lists are great. And you'll notice if you read your book, The Death of the Self-Love Excuse, I talk about lists are for things, not people. So don't list about yourself necessarily, but you'll read the book, you'll understand. But I love lists because they do help us to get clarity when we're doing tasks. So making a list, and on this list, you're going to write the categories that you're going to talk about in your 10-year plan. So this is to be thorough. So for those of you who are like, no, I need to know every area of my life is going to be good, then great, do this. If not, you can just pick one area and write a letter on one area. So here's some areas that you can choose to do. So there's your relationship with your love life, relationship with your family, relationship with yourself, relationship with spirit, higher power, God, angels, whatever you believe in, And then your health. So what is your body doing? What is your body able to do? How does your body feel? What about money and abundance and having everything you need and having it be there when you need it? How is that life like? Maybe what's the exact dollar amount that you would like to create? Ooh, dare we say how much money we actually want? Yes, we do dare. Do that. Then we have what is our purpose or success or our career? Where's our impact that we're making in a world, our community? What are we doing to make the world a better place? Where's our impact? Where's our mission? Where's our life purpose? What does that look like in 10 years? And if 10 years is too far, pick 5, pick 2, pick 1, pick 6 months, pick a month. And when you get the next kit, and the next kit's going to be connection. So we're going to get to some deep stuff. And then also, what about little girl dreams that you had? What are those goals that you had when you were young, or little boy dreams when you were young, and the things that you always thought you wanted, and why did you want those? Have you ever noticed somebody who is in a career that has always been part of who they are versus somebody who's in a career because it made logical sense? So recently I was getting a tattoo with my tattoo artist, and he's amazing. Deepest, most beautiful, epic, soulful conversations as I'm getting a tattoo, like which you would not expect from Mr. Tattoo Biker Man, right? With a beard down to here. But we were talking about past lives and seeing spirits and all of the things. And it's funny because as I was listening to his life path, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was always in you. You've always been an artist. You've always had these deep thoughts and this deep purpose and connection to people and symbology and old things, and you found a way to magically match them all together, and I love how you merged it. And then I realized my own life. My little girl dreams, I wanted to be a teacher, and then I got a little bit older and I wanted to be a school counselor because I really like the counseling part, but around education. And then I wanted to have a doctorate degree in psychology and be a therapist and have people come into my home and help call them on their crap and clear it. But then also I wanted to be able to speak publicly on stage. I wanted to sing and be musical. So there's my drums. And be, one of my biggest things was I wanted to feel like I was beautiful and I loved myself. And if you read my book, it's in there. And I became a makeup artist so I could learn how to paint my own face and how to tell people how to paint their own faces. So it's very interesting because all of the things that I desire were already there. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, I used to, in my spare time, I made books of flowers and objects and stickers and plants, and I would cut them out and I'd glue them into little books. And there were no words, they were just cataloged plants. And I would also draw and paint, and I had all these cartoon strips, and I loved art, and I wanted to be an artist as well. So I almost forgot that piece. And so I get to do all of those things, but those things were always part of who I was. I always wanted to teach, and I would pretend that I was teaching either school or church to all my stuffed animals, and I had the imagination, and I would talk with the fairies, and oh, I wished I could have been a fairy or like the Little Mermaid. And so where are those little girl dreams, those little boy dreams that were always there? Because if we can find a way to incorporate what we desire with what was already in there, and that desire, that's a long time of desire, and it's going to be really easy to open that up. And once we open it up, you have that much more momentum built behind the desire. Ugh. So writing your letter and finding those desires in all the categories, make sure that you're not missing an area. Now, I know this is a huge task and it can take hours and hours and hours and hours. Pick a rainy day or a snowy day and maybe start writing out some of it. You don't have to do it all at once, but even if you just pick one category, pick maybe what your big sting is. So for example, we're going to talk about what we don't want. So if there's an area where you're always complaining, that's an area that I would start writing. I would do something with that. And so if there's something that's always bugging, you're like, oh, this always happens, I hate it. Well, let's write about it. If there's something that you're just like, I'm not doing this anymore, I don't like this cycle, and we're going to talk about cycles in a minute, that would be an area that you would choose opposite of, or even opposite and up a little bit. So for example, I wanted to be just a regular elementary school teacher, like a 3rd or 5th grade level, which is funny because I talk spiritual things on the 3rd or 5th grade level sometimes, I think. And so, which I'm great with, I hope you're great with, and if you're watching this, you must be. And so it's interesting because even though I wanted to teach on that level, I'm doing something like it, but it's like that, but up a little bit. And that way the pendulum doesn't swing back and take me back to a place that is a lower vibration than my highest level of what I'm capable of. Okay, so now that we have this, the kind of the layout of what we're going to create, I want to share what happened when I created my 10-year plan. So yes, it has been more than 10 years, but I pulled it out probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And I think it was only like 8 years. So time, numbers, meh. And in my huge outline of my life, I went through all of those categories and I wrote in detail about it, what things smelled like, what things looked like, how I felt about it. And it's kind of funny because I was married to a narcissistic sociopath back then, and I didn't know it. I was still very, very religious. And I love religion because it does create a context of understanding outside of ourselves. And it also can be the foundation that we stand on to reach for something more. And so, but compared to my life now, it's drastically a different system, a different way that I exercise my faith. And so it's interesting because even though my life was so different back then, if I go back and look, the emotion and the context are exactly the same. So for example, I talked about how I have the love that little girls dream of. A man who sees all of me, my flaws and all, and loves me unconditionally. I thought I had that in my marriage, but what I had was indifference, which is actually the opposite of love, not hate. We think, oh, love and hate are opposites. Love and hate are on the same side. Indifference is the opposite. And so I found that I was with somebody who was indifferent, that was having affairs, and so he really didn't care. And I took that as, oh, you must love me because you support me and you don't care if I go off and do these endeavors and try these new ways of thinking and learn to be an energy healer. And oh, he just loves me and all my weirdness. No, he just didn't care. And so I didn't know that. And I knew what I wanted. And I had my clarity of what my path was and the relationship I wanted. So I actually wrote in detail the relationship that I had with my then ex-husband. However, I'm in a relationship now where that's exactly what I have. Like I do something quirky and weird and he's like, that is so cute. Boop, I'm gonna boop your nose. Like the cheesy crap that we're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just did that. And so, yes, and I even talk about how it's sometimes a inner child, I forget how I worded it, but it was like my inner child gets to frolic and play with my partner, which is hilarious because that's my relationship now. My ex-husband is the most stoic, somber, most barely smiles. People never knew if he was mad at them or if he liked them. So my reality didn't paint what I was coloring. However, it was on its way and I had that clarity to know what I wanted. So over the years, I made steps that would bring me closer to what I wanted. And what I would do is when I was having a down day, I would read that letter. And then I forgot about it and my divorce happened and everything kind of just got shoved into boxes. And it was when I was unpacking about 4 years ago in my new home that I found the letter. And so I hadn't read it in a lot of years. Also in that letter, I talked about how I travel the world helping women to love themselves. And literally next week, I am going to Hawaii to make drums, clear emotional crap, and help women to love themselves. And I'm like, wow, that's the farthest I think I've gotten to travel and be paid for it without breaking even. Like actually, like this is a job, I am hired. And so I was like, wow, this is actually happening because I can always travel and use it as a, reason for business and break even and at least have a good tax deduction. But this time it's exactly what I had painted in it. And so what is it that you're really, really wanting? What gets to come out? Writing it out. And I even talked about my relationship with my kids. I love that my kids can tell me anything, that our home is a safe haven, and I talked about all of these things, even though they weren't necessarily true back then. But I was painting a picture. And the more I imagined it and the more I wrote it out, the easier it was to realize it could actually happen and the clearer it got. Because if I would write something and it didn't fit, it would get deleted or erased. And I do recommend handwriting it and then typing it out because something about handwriting for me and my language, If I handwrite, it's like poetry or it's craziness, but sometimes madness is poetry, right? And so for me, I love writing it out by hand. But if the way you get it done is putting it on a computer, then put it on a computer, or type it in your phone, or even just record it as you talk and you're driving in the car. That's when I get the best downloads, is when I'm like running or driving and it's like not really convenient to sit down and write. So allowing yourself space to do those, that will help get you some of that deep clarity. What is it you want? Paint the picture. Understand. If money were no object and you said, guess what? You won the $1 billion lottery. What are you going to do with your day every day? Because that's going to give you an idea of what you want. You may say, oh, I really love this job. Great. Oh, I love this job because I love the money it gives me, not because it actually makes me feel fulfilled. Because I had a job where I finally left because I said, you know what? I'm doing my healing work on the side and I'm doing this other business on the side and I'm a single mom and all of these things. And I feel like I'm whoring out my best because I'm coming to this job for money. And I hate it. I hate every minute of it. And sometimes I'll have little flashes of light and love, like somebody will come in and they are just, beautiful, light-filled, heart-loving, warm, beautiful soul. They're like, hello, Hollie. I love you. Thanks for showing up and doing this job so I could be served. Oh, I'm happy to be here for you. One of them was I worked at a vet clinic and people would have pets coming in that were passing or have to put down. And that is a hard day for anybody. But for me, I celebrated those. I love death work and I love the shadow work. And it was a sacred honor to hold space and be part of that for them. And I was also really good at moving people along so we could have the room open, but not make them feel like they weren't able to have the experience they needed to say their final goodbyes. And so whether you're in a job you love or not, there's always pockets of how you can find what you desire in there. So paying attention to what are the emotions you want to bring in? What is an emotion you want to feel more of? What if we get clarity on that? And sometimes the emotion we want to feel is clarity itself. And so never underestimate the power of the affirmation, I love when I feel clarity. I love when I feel clarity. I love when I feel clarity. The more you say it, the more it starts to come into you because you're inviting it in. And so that makes it that much more stronger because you're not resisting feeling clarity. You're not talking about how crazy and distracted and unfocused you are because what you think about, you bring about, right? So you're thinking about how everything's wrong and how stressed out you are and how overwhelmed you are, and you're just getting more of all that noise. And so instead, we just focus on how much clarity we have, how much we love that clarity we have. And it just feels good, right? Okay, so that's some to-do action items to get some clarity. The next portion we're going to talk about is how to get out of your head. So, and also how to get other people out of your head. So a lot of this stems down to fear. And we talked about fear a little bit in the Courage Kit, I believe it was. So if you haven't watched those videos, I invite you to watch those. And overcoming that fear is going to be a huge piece in getting clarity. Fear is usually given to us because we learn it from others, and we fear the things that will go wrong, or we even fear success by watching others and then watching how they change and the things that go wrong. And so asking yourself, when you do feel those fears and you feel those thoughts saying, oh, well, this is why I can't have that. And this is why I can't do that. Hollie, can't believe you said that. You don't know my life. You don't know me. I can't have those things. I'm not like this and I'm not like that. And I don't know how to do that. Well, that would be all your fear talking. Because the fear is going to come in and say, yeah, you can't do things. Because if you didn't have that fear, you would already be on your way doing those things. And so asking yourself, okay, whose voice is in my head right now? When that fear kicks in and says you can't do that, whose voice is it? Is it maybe a family member's? We get a lot of fear and a lot of blocks learned from family members. Is it maybe ancestral family members? A lot of my ancestors were pioneer immigrants, so the Mormon immigrants, and so they left wanting to have this new safe way to believe, and they left everything for it and believed they were doing God's will and went through a lot of hardships. So that DNA is in me saying, it's a struggle, honey. Don't make too much noise. Don't be too loud. People won't like it. You don't really have permission for that. In fact, you should go ask somebody in charge for permission so that you can do this thing, because if you could just go off on your own, you're going to be in trouble. And so I had to go through a lot of those, and I still have those things come up sometimes where I feel like the voices of my ancestors are coming in saying, wait, be careful. Don't go what we went through. And so if those are your fears coming up, then call them out, address them, write them down, label them, name them, because you're also going to have those same ancestors that say, oh yes, free the family, free the life path. Let's move through this. So asking yourself, where does this fear come from? Whose fear is this? Is this a fear of failure? Is it a fear of some type of success? Is it going to create a new pressure to perform? That was actually one of my biggest blocks that I had many years ago when I first became a makeup artist. Is I was terrified that everybody was going to judge me and look at my makeup, and what if my makeup was bad that day? Then they would think I didn't know what I was doing, and they would hate me, and they would no longer respect me or love me or buy anything from me, and I would not be able to feed my babies. Well, I'd still be able to feed my babies, because you can boil down that fear. Well, they would still like me. Well, they would think I just had a rough day, and they'd probably be nicer to me if my makeup was like one day. And so asking yourself, like, let's label the fear so that we can say, well, how can I have this? How can that also not be true? How does this belief system and this pattern that's flowing through get to not be part of who I am? And that kind of goes into one of our other concepts that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is what is the belief system that's keeping you from having that clarity? Where's the voice coming from? Is it a voice of life? Is it a voice of light? Is it a voice of caution? Is it a voice of somebody else in your head? So when I first found my home, this home that I'm in right now, it was the first home I bought all by myself as a single woman. All by myself, period. But especially as a new single mom, going through that really messy divorce, and there's so much uncertainty. I didn't even know if I loved St. George yet. I didn't even live where I live yet. I was still 2 hours away in a different town, and I didn't really know anybody. I had one friend that was a client of mine from like 8 years ago, and one friend that I met on a cruise ship. And randomly she lived here, and I was like, how amazing is that? And that was it. Like, I didn't know why I was being called to where I was being called. And so I'm voicing, kind of my nervousness, because we had so many problems closing on the house, and there was a lot of fixing up. And I was talking to my mom, and I said, Mom, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm really scared, but I'm really excited. I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I'm telling her all the things. And I remember she leaned back and she said to me, I'm excited for you, but I'm just not sure how you're going to afford the house all by yourself. And I was like, I did the numbers. Like, they're giving me a loan. That means I should be able to afford it. And I remember it so distinctly, because here she had put in that little bit of doubt and fear. Now, she wasn't trying to say, Holly, you shouldn't have a house and you shouldn't have a home and you should just suffer forever. She was like, how can you do this? Because I don't see, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, well, it's a fixer-upper. So, and I defended it, and I defended it right there. But inside, it got in my head. And so, interestingly enough, is a few months later, while I was still trying to close on the house, I had moved into town, started a new job. The closing date had been delayed, which means I switched a job in the middle of it. And that later became a huge problem. They declined my loan. And the same mom, who's actually my Mama Kay, my stepmom, but my mom, she actually passed away suddenly. And so here I am, middle of closing on my house. It's already been 3 months. They found so many problems they had to repair before I could even get the loan. Then the loans declined because I moved and changed jobs too soon and got some bad advice from my broker. And then my mom goes, and my dad's now alone on the farm all by himself. And I'm wondering if I'm making the right choice. And I start to doubt because that little voice from her has been stuck in my head. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is a sign because she was concerned I couldn't afford it. And now she's gone. So, and it's already being so hard to get it. And there's all these problems and all this friction. This must be a no. I must not need to be in this house. And I had a moment where I was like, I think I'm not supposed to be in this house. Now, it's really funny. Those of you who have heard the story, I did continue with the house. In fact, I bought the house because I felt that women would gather here. And I knew that this was something special about this. And I didn't even know what. I didn't even see the whole house because there were renters in it. And I knew it was supposed to be mine. I didn't have any words. It all felt crazy. And so diving into that, I have to ask, whose fear is influencing me? Is this my fear or is this somebody else's fear? This was her fear, that I would be all alone and screwed over and homeless and have babies to provide, and I couldn't do it by myself. The interesting thing is that there are many, many beautiful spiritual signs that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I don't know how long I'm supposed to be here, but this is where I'm supposed to be. There was no doubt. There's even a holly tree out back that was 6 feet tall, and it's a traditional holly tree. It's a red desert. Holly doesn't grow here unless it's holly oak, and it's wild. But this was a pruned, pristine holly tree that you see like in the Midwest and on the East Coast, like not in the heat. And it died as soon as I moved in. And I didn't change anything. In fact, it was a rental, so nobody cared about the yard. And yeah, I made it a drumstick. There was also rose quartz planted in like a huge chunk of it in the middle of the yard that I found weeding one day. And there's also, you guys have seen rose quartz in the kit, so that's powerful. Like there's already crystals buried. The fireplace was from the same place I was born in the UK. So there are lots and lots and lots of synchronicities that said, nope, this is where I'm supposed to be. However, I almost didn't do it, and I let myself be really confused and give up my clarity because of another person's point of view. So asking yourself, is this mine? Is this my cycle? Is this my own fear? Okay, great. What am I afraid of? Okay. Am I feeling that emotion now? Is that something I've dealt with before? Well, yeah. Like I've been homeless twice as a single mom. Okay. So odds are that if you had to be homeless again, you'd probably know what to do and you'd probably figure it out and you'd probably be okay because you seem like you're okay right now. Oh. Well, yeah, I'd figure it out. I'd hate it, but I'd figure it out. Oh, okay. Well, now that we know we would figure it out, let's stop being afraid and decide what we want again. Okay, well, what do I want? I want a magical forest home with an oasis that has trees and life and magic. Okay. Well, that's right here. If you want it, it's here. Oh, okay. I'm going to take this house. And actually through people that I knew, happenstance, I ended up getting a new loan, starting it and closing it in 2 weeks. And we moved in the week before Christmas. Before we had even closed, we got to move in. So the loan only took 2 weeks after waiting for 4 months. So once I said, no, this is my house. This is where I belong, because I almost moved back up to northern Utah and I would have never come to southern Utah again because legally I wouldn't have been allowed to with my children. And so it was just magical. And so getting aside from all of that fear and all of the blocks and all of the noises in your head, calling them out. If you can't figure out what you want or what path you should take, start diving into, okay, well, what am I blocked by? This. Okay, great. Let's look at that. Oh, I'm scared that this will happen. I'm scared that will happen. Great. What would we do if it happened? I would handle it. Do we have to know how to handle it right now in order to move forward? Or would we be able to figure it out at that time? Oh, we could figure it out at that time. Okay, great. Let's deal with it then. Because most of the things we fear never even happen. But anything you think of fearing dumps all of that chemical into your body, and it creates negative emotions in your body. So you start changing things that don't need to be changed because of the emotions you're feeling. So when we feel a negative emotion come around, it's because something needs to change. But it's not always outside of us. Sometimes it's our perspective that needs to shift. And when you go, wait a minute, I need to realign with what I want. And that's what we were wanting to create with this clarity kit. Realigning with who am I? What do I want? Who am I? What do I want? And ultimately what we want is joy. So what brings the most joy? Sometimes we think if it brings joy, then it's not okay to want it because we should be sad, miserable cows. Nope. I would say we make drums out of sad, miserable cows, but I don't. I make drums out of happy cows that have full, wild, lives free range. So that doesn't even apply. But you understand the metaphor. Don't be a sad, miserable cow, because you're not going to ever get what you want that way. In fact, if you have that belief that you have to be miserable and you have to suffer and it has to be hard, and if it's easy, it's evil, it's going to stop you from getting what you want every single time. Hands down. Like, you will find a problem. You will make a problem. You will create drama so that you can get what you want, which is the drama and the suffering, because then it's more valuable. Not sure who needed to hear that, but I'm sure somebody at least did. So you'll have to let me know if it was you, because I'll be curious. Okay, so next we're going to talk about cycles of habit of thought. So we talked about the beliefs. We talked about how to get clarity of knowing what you want. We talked about knowing what you don't want and some of the ancestral influence. But sometimes we can get in these thought cycles that create lots of confusion. So with your lists intact, and even if you've written your letter now, or maybe you're watching the whole video and then you'll go back and do the to-do items, you're going to dive into what is the thought pattern that's going on here. Because we may know what we want, and then we get stuck in a thought pattern, this cycle that stops us from having that clarity. So one of the things I usually do is I look at, well, what's the positive emotion that's missing? Since it's clarity kit, we'll talk about clarity. So if clarity is the thing that's missing at the very, very top of our cycle, and we've talked about cycles in some of the other videos too. So if clarity is at the very, very top, and that's the thing we're lacking, what happens when you feel a lack of clarity? So even writing it down. When I feel a lack of clarity, I go to what emotion? If clarity is not the thing that you're lacking, it's like, you know what? I have clarity. I know what I don't want. Okay, well, what is the thing that you want that you're not seeing that shows up? So maybe it's financial. Maybe it's a lack of money flowing easily. So when I have a lack of abundance, what emotion do I go to? Maybe it's a lack of feeling that you are loved unconditionally. I'm only loved based on what I do. Lack of unconditional love. Pick what that lack is that's coming up, and then go to the next phase. What is the habit? What is the pattern? Now, this is something to do when you can have some quiet time, sip your tea, utilize your essential oils, putting it on the back of your neck, even behind your ears, your wrists, and the bottom of your feet or your ankles will help, because it will ground you and center you and help to diffuse everybody else's noise around you. And so with your oils, with your tea, really tune into what your gut is saying. So as I go through this lack of this positive emotion, so we'll say lack of clarity, I go straight to feeling a negative emotion. What's the negative emotion I'm feeling? Well, when I have the lack of clarity, I go straight to frustration, because I want it to be easy. I want to know what I want. I want to know how to do it. You may have another emotion. You may have the emotion of insecurity, lack of clarity, because I can't do what I want. You may have some fear because you don't know what action to take. You may have... I'm just tuning into somebody who's watching this. It's kind of really fun. I've had feedback last time that in the videos that I've done this, that somebody said, oh my gosh, it was me. So it's been really fun. Maybe a lack of excitement, right? So I don't have a lack of clarity, so I feel melancholy. And I just feel like I can't really move forward with anything. Well, then what's the next thought? What's the next action? Well, the next emotion is when I'm feeling frustrated from my lack of clarity. Then I start to look outside of myself, and I start to look at all the reasons why I don't have clarity, and I start to get really mad at other people and get irritated. And then I go through that cycle. So what do you feel? And then what action do you take? So I get mad and irritated at people. So then the action I take is I withdraw and I claim my me time and call it recalibration time, which is recalibration is always good time. But in this case, it's like, I'm going to pull away, I'm going to solitude, I'm going to push myself away from everybody else. And by pushing myself away from everybody else, I'm going to curve up and realize that I am all alone. But then I'm finally taking the time to get clear. And all I'm doing is thinking about how mad I am at everybody else. Dang it! And then finally, I get to a point in the cycle where I'm going to find my clarity. And so I list out all the things I want. But then I also see all the reasons why I can't get them because of all these people and all of these things, which creates a lack of clarity, and the cycle continues. So a lot of times we'll have cycles like that go over and over again. So asking yourself, well, what is the cycle when I don't feel clear? Or even just keeping a notebook handy, and as you go through certain thoughts in your day, journal them out, write them down. Right now, I'm really frustrated because I want this thing and I don't know how to get it. Okay, great. I'm going to write that down. I want this thing. I don't know how to get it. well, what if I do this? Oh, okay, I'm problem solving. Great. And then nothing comes to mind. I'm so mad and frustrated. Ooh, I go to mad and frustrated. And then cycling it through. So again, it's going to be, what is the emotion that's lacking? The emotion you feel because the emotion's lacking. And then what's your thought process or your assessment of what's happening? And then what's your action based on that thought process? And then what's the emotion that comes after that action? Then the realization that causes more of that same negative experience, that lack of that positive emotion. So finding that cycle is going to help. If you need some help reflecting that and finding it, please message me. I'm happy to help. And so, but some of those cycles can play out a lot and cause a lot of clarity. And some of us might have extra steps. So if you're like, oh, I go here and I go here and I go here and then I go back to the cycle, that's totally fine. And it's absolutely normal. This is just kind of a baseline that you can look at and say, this is why I feel like I'm not clear. This is why I keep staying in these ruts that I don't like. And I keep having my wants be my wants, or not even allowing my wants to be my wants. Looking at the cycle, giving it some focus, giving it some actual pen to paper information so that you can say, oh, this is it, and here's how we move through that. And so a lot of understanding to who you are is knowing what you're going to do with the information you have about who you are. And so now if you did your confidence kit, awesome, because you will know exactly what that is. If not, I do recommend the confidence kit so that you can understand who you are, so it's easier to understand what you want and what you don't want. Because if you know your part, then it's easier to see, hey, this is me and this is who I am. So as I talked a little bit about my little girl dreams and what I always wanted to be when I grew up, this is it. I wanted to be able to teach. I wanted to be able to be artistic. I wanted to be so spiritual, and I wanted to shine, and I wanted to help other people to feel beautiful and feel like they can shine. And I wanted people to be nice to each other, and I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to write and sing and dance and play music, and I get to do it all. And so, but if I didn't know who I was, I probably wouldn't leap over there, because I'm really good at the analytical stuff. I'm really good at desk work. And so if I sat at a desk all the time, I would even think that that was who I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be this analytical person, who I am analytical, but I use it in my woo-woo ways. So it's fun. But I thought I was this person that was supposed to stick with spreadsheets and grids. And even though I'm really, really good at it, that's not my favorite. And you can have a lot of things you love, and then you can have your favorites. So maybe it's journaling out some of your favorite things about you, some of your favorite desires. And I do recommend reading the book, The Death of the Self-Love Excuse, because it talks a lot about getting over those lists that offer validation and just allowing ourselves to find what we love, who we are, what feels light, what feels easy, what feels beautiful. And when you're in doubt, always follow what feels light, what feels easy, what feels beautiful, because those are the things that are already going to be easier for you to obtain, because they're already seeking you. They're already finding you. Sometimes we think if it's easy, it's not meant to be, and resistance is the reason why I know I'm on the right path. Well, other people say resistance is the reason why you're not on the right path. And so sometimes resistance is there because we are resisting. So looking at that, where am I resisting? Where am I holding back? Is there some part of me that doesn't believe that me, get to have these things I want? And let's look at that. Where is it that I am holding myself from my own desires? Do I really believe I can have it? And there are days, I promise, I wake up and I look at my life and I go, wow, this is my life. I get to have everything I ever wanted. All of it at the same time. What? And then there's other days where I do wake up and I'm like, I hate my life and I don't know what to do with it. And it's usually because I'm channeling somebody else, or I didn't take care of myself and I didn't nourish myself and I wasn't living up to my highest potential and vibration. So this is your permission to be a messy human, but to find those things that light you up, to find the things that give you that passion-filled fire and go towards them. If they're easy, perhaps it's because you have angels guiding you and helping you and paving the way to make it easy. And so for whomever it is that needs to hear that, I love you. Please receive it. know that I will be sending so much love and light your way. Thank you guys for watching. I'm excited to see what comes of your clarity and what you create in the next little bit. Have an amazing day, loves.